Fleeing into the night. As a response to less cold exposure, leverage for alertness in summer. In the last couple of years, I noticed a pattern. This pattern is the following. In winter, I'm more alert. Everything feels more urgent because the cold outside is always lingering. There is always this enemy outside. It's the cold. And I also want to expose myself to it. I need it. I also use it. I go outside. I often run in shorts and a tank top and barefoot shoes. And I then get in again. And I have something kind of to work against. In summer, it's different. In summer, the sun often kind of draws me outside. It's like, oh, everybody is outside now. I could now do this and this and this and this, and I need to be outside and I need to be with people, and I maybe don't sit in a room alone and work on things. Now, the flip side of the summer is that I am then less productive, and it feels harder in summer to work against the light outside, to work inside against the light outside. Whereas in winter, outside it's dark anyway, often. Not often, but for most part of the day, it is dark anyway. And so summer then caused this crash in productivity for the last couple of years. And so I've asked myself, how can I circumvent this possibly, but not necessarily this as the cause then for the recent behavior, but the recent behavior much more as something that happened anyway, and I now have to happen. I happen to have now observations about this. Since about February, and then also with the shift to summertime, the previous pattern that resulted in the highest sleep scores as measured on these two devices since I began wearing them, began to basically disassemble itself. I really tried to make a point of sleeping 8 hours a night, trying to sleep 8 hours a night, even though previously I often would try various sleep systems with also sleeping during the day, basically a shorter sleep during the day and also shorter sleep during the night, but compared to the day sleep, the night sleep was usually longer, anywhere from 4 to maybe 6 hours, but often also my body seemed to override this so well thought out plan I made up. Not recently, as of today, for example, as an example of maybe the utility of the already built-in algorithms, I yesterday went to bed at, I don't know, I think at 6 in the evening or 5:30 in the evening, due to the circadian shift, to basically a circadian shift happening, where I extended the period where I would stand up just longer and longer until I stayed up all through the night, and then it rotated forwards, and basically yesterday it began to approximate the night again. Now, apart from the fact that but the possible observation or perspective of this might be that this is ridiculous, and who can afford to do something like this? We all have so many things to do, but maybe not me. So what I noticed on my Garmin this morning is that even though I began my sleep basically earlier in the night, I did have the usual deep sleep in the beginning of the night, then REM sleep began to creep up, but as I was approaching kind of my usual time frame of bedtime again, I think the sleep pressure system then kind of woke me up, but there still seems to be kind of a different system going on that then induced again a deep sleep period, which usually at the end of the night I think does not happen. So there seems to be kind of an algorithm that adapted to basically kind of the specific sleep needs I would have, which would be, in this case, that the deep sleep in the beginning of the night probably was too low. The question is whether I, in my very limited amount of rationality can even attempt to kind of bring such a complicated system into something that is a better allocation. Now, back to fleeing into the night. Due to the basically alertness promoting effects of cold exposure, in winter I can open the windows and my room gets colder. My apartment or my office gets colder. And I also can go outside for a walk if I happen to overeat on 6,000 calories of carbs. Then I can go onto a walk in just basically a shirt, and then my body, at least to a certain extent, cools down. But in summer I cannot really do this. And I also haven't found a really good replacement solution for this, apart from maybe fleeing into the night. In the night it's colder. The overarching theme of this seems to be the sunlight exposure. As the sunlight exposure in winter decreases, the temperature average also decreases. As the sunlight temperature in summer then increases again, then, well, we also have the temperature increase. And so also throughout the day, with these smaller variations of the night and the day, basically the sun more there and less there, and basically also the gradient in between, one then could say, what if in summer, instead of being exposed to the heat during the day, why not just switch to the night? Now, of course, then one has to take into account that maybe out of the two systems, maybe simplified, the two systems that make up sleep, or that turn oneself sleepy, first of all, the melatonin system, that seems to be the one that is coupled to the circadian rhythm, and the second one, the adenosine system, that kind of seems to track how long one has then been awake, and then if one has been awake for too long, basically also induces sleep. In my experience, the adenosine system seems to be kind of the little more powerful system, at least maybe also due to genetics in me. So, and I happen to be, what I noticed in the last couple of weeks to months is the following, also before this big change in my circadian alignment or synchronization, is that in the evening, once basically the sun is down, once the cars outside get less loud, I can work better. There is this phase where it's 10 a.m. in the evening, 10 p.m. in the evening, or 9 p.m. in the evening. I now have eaten, and then there is just nothing else to do. So I can either now watch YouTube for the next 13 years, or I actually do something with my time. Now, of course, there is also maybe the problem that sometimes I try to do things, or I want to do things that would be loud, like making music, for example, which then in the middle of the night might not be the best of ideas, at least if I want to stay in this apartment. But on the other side of the night, I also seem to very much enjoy being awake, which is the early morning. So for now a couple of years, I have tried standing up at 5, standing up at 4, and an accumulated, I don't know exactly, I would have to look it up, it's maybe 600, 700 days of stood up at 4, plus minus 5 minutes, and then staying awake at least 20 minutes, at least that was the habit I defined. I can say that I do really enjoy the early morning, especially if I then work out maybe 2 hours later, starting at 6, for example, or starting at 7. I do then have just time where I don't have to do that much, where I also cannot do that much due to the constraint of not being too loud. So what I often then do is just do work basically on my computer. And this could be various things. This could be studying. This could be other things. But there is just nothing happening. You can't go to the grocery store and buy protein bars. You also cannot go to the grocery store and buy a cake at 4 in the morning. What you could do is you could already go for a run. So, for example, today I already went for a run, as I woke up yesterday at midnight, roughly, or maybe close to midnight. And so I basically stood up at midnight today, and then I did something for 4 hours. I also cleaned my apartment, and then I went on a run at 4 in the morning. I also, in the last couple of months, actually did something similar, where I just tried to sleep. I tried to sleep in the late evening, but often what happened was that I then ate too late because I tried to fast all day, and then my body seemed to still want nutrients, and so I ate too late, and then I couldn't sleep due to my body still being digesting or in digestion mode, and then I sometimes would just go at midnight onto the run, or at 1 a.m. in the morning after attempting for 2 hours to sleep and not being able to sleep. So over the last, let's say 2 years, I probably have accumulated hundreds of hours of lying in bed at night and not sleeping. And so as of the last couple of weeks, I decided, more or less, because I also had less external constraints, that what if I just followed the system of, okay, if I am too alert and my mind is racing anyway, and I want to now write down all the ideas I have, or all the things that seem so urgent that I need to solve right now, because then everything else will get worse and so on. What if I just now work on these things and therefore calm my mind by actually already implementing what I otherwise would forget, and then feel anxious about forgetting all of these things, and now finally having the mental power for once, but actually with this being the time where I then will be asleep, and then also knowing that the next time during the day or the next day, then during the day, that I will not be as alert, because I obviously then didn't sleep that well or not that long. So instead I try to just well, if I am too alert, then I just go up and I just do something, basically. I did not implement the advice of Matthew Walker or other people online talking about sleep as then to do something that is not that mentally demanding, because if I just take the hundreds of hours I otherwise would lose, basically, and I just do something with these, of course the question is, what is the long-term better optimization? Circadian optimization on a daily basis, that it is kind of the same, but then also the sun fluctuates throughout the year and the temperature fluctuates throughout the year. What is then the ideal thing? Is it that you just sleep less in summer because the light is out there all the time, or is the body so smart, or to up from which extent of synchronization, or let's just say you are only 50% synchronized with the outside light, but it's summer, and then the light keeps you more alert, and maybe you're also not exposing yourself to the light so much in summer as in winter, so there might be less of a synchronization occurring. So the additional light in summer might keep you more awake and therefore kind of block your sleep in a way, whereas in winter you might sleep, I don't know. So the question is this actually maybe a viable concept? Is this something I could implement, use to a certain extent? I also have been thinking about maybe 2 different systems, but the problem is that the scheduling of this is just way too complicated. I do run kind of a daily schedule and a weekly schedule, even though I have kind of overthrown these in the last couple of weeks and just followed simpler functions like, okay, now sleep when I'm tired, now stand up and do all of these things, work out, and then continue to work, basically, and then once I fall asleep and eat in between. Very simplified, but what if this actually works better? Instead of trying to rationally come up with a system that I then cannot really follow, because as soon as one variable is a little bit off, I then cannot fall asleep at 10, and if I have eaten a little bit too late, I don't exactly know. But therefore the concept kind of was born of this idea of fleeing into the night in summer. In summer it's colder in the night, therefore I can work better at night. I can work in the evening, in the late evening anyway, when it's kind of silent outside, when I can finally open the windows and actually somewhat cool air comes in. And the same is true for the morning, when the maximally cooled air or the minimally temperatured air then comes in, until kind of the sun begins to heat up the environment around me again.